Hey, good morning, Max.
How are you, Christine? It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great. I really feel honored and I'm very grateful you're taking this time to talk with me. I hardly feel like you need an introduction. You've been very busy lately and always, right? So I will put any links in the show notes or whatever so people know where to find you. So we're both in Mexico.
What was that?
We're both in Mexico.
Both in Mexico. You're in Mexico, are you? Whereabouts are you?
I'm up in central Mexico, outside of San Miguel de Allende, which is
Oh, okay.
considered the heart of Mexico. And yeah, I don't know if we'll talk too much about it. I love it here. I've been here since I was 23 years old. So,
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure whether I'll stay here or not. I mean, I'm thinking about down in Oaxaca. I'm thinking about up near Puerto Vallarta. I'm also thinking about Belize. So, oh,
okay.
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, well, you got uprooted. So, and I'm pretty rooted here, which is good. So I'm part of a community and I have a little health shop and I have really interesting conversations every day. So
Oh,
why don't
that's
we
good.
get started, Max? I pulled an Amelia Earhart quote. Let me pull it up and look at it and just read it because I thought it would set the tone. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. And that really spoke to me on a very deep personal level. Because once you've moved out of the matrix, once you've moved out of as best you can, you've unhooked yourself. It does take a certain amount of courage.
Well, it
And
does. It does. It takes courage to face what you're doing. It takes courage to throw yourself to the wind and just ride it, and kind of getting to that stage. And that's what a lot of people have to do. And
yeah,
that's what I've done. And it just because it needed to be done. So, but it does take courage to do it, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you just do what has to be done, darling.
yeah. Well, and that's why you're such a wonderful voice out there, Max. Besides reporting on the situation in the world, you actually see the big picture. And I know a lot of people haven't quite grasped the whole totality of it yet, or even if we could call it a totality. So when I look at what's happening and why I like that quote particularly is finding yourself situated in a very peaceful place. And you say two things all the time: face infinity without flinching. And you also say have no investment in the outcome. And while those might be words for some people to dwell upon, they do become a living reality within you. And for me, it's all about peace. It's about holding myself in a very, uh, very foundational, grounded place of peace so that the voice of spirit can be the guide. And I was just, I think about what you say, and I've listened to you since before you put your face out there. Okay, that's how long I've been listening to your voice. If you could just express maybe, because these things for me are observational and they're verifiable within my own living experience, that when you can really embody or integrate what you say all the time, how does that affect you, Max?
Well, having no stake in the outcome allows you to kind of go with the flow with things. When we create a particular project, and let's face it, every time you walk out the door and you go shopping, this is a project. Everything you do is a project. It's something you're creating. As soon as you start creating that, it has its own life force. We forget about that. We want to direct it in the direction we want to go, and we don't allow it to create its own force and speak to us through its own life. We create a project and we have this vision of where we want it to go, which is all very well. I mean, you might want to complete some particular task, some art piece or some whatever, but allow it to speak to you along the way. And you'll find that there's different pathways that you didn't think of that will lead you places you didn't expect you could go. And it's all good. And, we have too much invested in the outcome of these projects we've set in place, and we don't listen to the life that they create, which could lead us somewhere we didn't expect, we could end up in a completely much better place than we thought we were going to be. The example that I use often is like in 2012, I went overseas for 10 days to a retreat in Peru. Someone offered me, said, come to this conference. And I went, well, okay. And I just forgot about my ticket home and I just stepped into it. And ended up traveling right around the world. I was away for 3.5 months and I went right around the world. I wouldn't have done that if I'd had plans. So people say, how do you do all this stuff if you don't plan it? And I go, well, if I had plans, I wouldn't have done it because I would have had other plans.
Right, right. You
You
know,
know what I mean? So when you're open to the synchronicities and you're open to life just speaking to you, and like I say, face infinity without flinching, which is the knack of being able to face with serenity odds and circumstances are not included in your calculations. Something comes up and your life just suddenly changes. You've just got to step into that and just see where it leads you. Throw yourself to the wind and you can ride it. No stake in the outcome. This is where I have to go now. I have to go on this path. I have to step through this portal. It's completely unknown. I don't know what I'm going to do, but it'll be all right because it's just a new experience. It's just the next part of the next chapter. You know, we have too much invested in what we believe our security to be, which is very often just familiarity. You know, the familiarity here that we're used to, and when that's gone, we don't know what to do with ourselves because we believe we are our stuff. So I mean, this is the way I've been able to live my life. If I couldn't face infinity without flinching, if I had a stake in the outcome, I couldn't have left Australia when I did. I couldn't have done any of those things because I would have had too much invested in what I've got there and in my lifestyle and in my perceived security and all that sort of stuff. Fortunately, I mean, I've lived most of my life as a musician on the road. So I'm used to traveling. I'm used to living out of a suitcase. I'm used to temporary relationships with people because bands break up all the time and you meet people in towns when you're touring and things just, it's this weird kind of lifestyle. So, I mean, everything in my life has kind of prepared me for the moment that I can do what I'm doing now. And I know it's not easy for a lot of people to live that way. A lot of people need that security around them. Well, they believe they need it anyway. They believe they need their stuff. They think they are their stuff. I've just said, if you really want to get through what's coming, I mean, you need to be able to be prepared to simply walk into the forest with a knife and a piece of rope and know that you're going to survive.
That's why I love you, Max. I swear. I mean, it's like I hear you say things that I say to others, right? And so
well, it's good to have your stuff. I mean, it's good to have your security, your little place and all that, but you've got to be prepared to be able to just get up and walk away from it. Yeah. And it's still okay. You've got your vessel that God gave you for the experience. What else? What is there to worry about, really? Why have a stake in it?
I mean, and that's exactly, I mean, my life is a living example of that. And that's what I feel like an affinity with you is because your life is a living example. We both have very different lives. We have different outcomes. We have different things, but I've walked away from so many things in my life. And the beauty for me has been that when you do that, these portals or these opportunities open that you never knew were there.
It's very liberating. It's very, very liberating. Look, that's why I've never bothered to buy land and stuff, because if I buy land, then it owns me then. You can't ever own the earth. The earth owns you. And when you buy something and you buy land and you build a house, then you've got all this stuff and it keeps you there. You can't go. It owns you now. You think you own it.
Sort of,
I mean, think you own it, but it doesn't. It owns you,
But I'm sitting here in this house that was basically gifted to me, and it's not in my name. And I've got a little piece of property and I'm looking around and going, how did I do this again? I have walked away from 3 houses.
But you're kind of just sharing space with it. You're sharing space with the house. There's no real attachment of ownership and all that sort of stuff. You can't own the earth. You're just sharing space. I mean, we'll purchase these places just so we've got those people. You just leave me alone. I've got my space, But you've got to be able to go away and leave that and come back and rah, rah, rah. You can't allow it to own you. And that's the problem that we've got. We've got everything backwards in the way we look at what we're supposed to be doing here.
Well, that all comes to me from like being attached to the past, right? Like tradition, things, possessions. I learned a long time ago that possessions possess you. And so it's a very liberating, like you said, to be able to say, okay, I have been given this. I'm living in abundance. I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate. But abundance seems to come into my life. But it doesn't come in because I'm making a plan for it. It comes in because I firmly sit that this planet, if we want to call it that, or this plane that we're inhabiting, she this earth is abundant in and of itself. And that's where most people, I think, are locked into scarcity. That's why the fear of giving up the job or letting go of things, because it's so been fundamentally put into us through programming, through our cultures, that, you know, it's man eat man. It's very scarce out there. You've got to, like, you know, fight for what you're going to have when you don't need any of it. Really, we don't need any of it.
No, it's a mirror. It's a mirror world. It's an emotional mirror. And because you feel like you live in a world of abundance, that abundance, leave it. It's when you try to believe it. You know, people say, Max, I'm trying to believe these things. Well, if you're trying to believe, you've missed the point altogether. There's a difference between knowing and trying to believe, you know. And when you're aware of the emotional connection you've got to the world, I mean, all you've got to do is put yourself in a bad mood one day and look at the way the world reacts around you. Put yourself in a good mood and have a look at the way the world reacts around you. Put yourself in a sad mood and observe the way the world reacts around you. It's a mirror. You know, so if you live in your natural state of abundance and with no stake in the outcome, you're not worried and stressed about all this stuff. You just throw yourself to the wind and you know you can ride it. Things are going to just work out. Things are going to go where they're supposed to go. Might not be what you expect, but it's going to go where it's supposed to go. And there's going to be a lesson and an experience and a journey in that. Well, then the universe just provides for you. It puts you where you're supposed to be. I mean, that's just the way my life has always worked. And this is the way your life has worked. And it's like I said, I mean, I just got an email this morning, someone saying, look, I've got this house here that I've just built in Belize. The person who is going to move into it has passed on. You can have this house. You can have it for the rest of your life free. It's there if you want it, you know, it's just been built. Stuff like this, it just comes to you, you know. So like I said, I mean, maybe I'll go to Belize. I don't know. I haven't really made up my mind about anything yet. But that's the way things work, you know.
So let's talk to a few people that might, like you said, they say, I'm trying to believe what you say, and it isn't a matter of belief. You can't pretend you're in joy. You can't pretend you have serenity. You can't pretend those things. You can't pretend love. You know,
people have to know themselves. I've said now's the time to do the shadow work. Look inside yourself and find out what makes you uncomfortable and sit with that for a while. Find out what it is, what your addictions are, what keeps you connected to this system, and sit with that for a while and learn how to step away from all that, you know, because you'll find that, you know, we are generally our own worst enemy. We are the ones who hold ourselves back from everything we want to do. We have these visions. You know, I've said to people, find out what is it that you want to do in your life is stopping you from doing that. And you'll generally find out that all these obstacles you're putting in place, you're creating them yourself. Well, I can't do this because that, and if you really look at it, no, this is all rubbish. You put all this in place. You could actually just go and do it, but you're concerned about all of this stuff that you own, that you think you own, or this lifestyle that you think you've got, or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. People just miss out on being themselves. They miss out on all the things they want to do in life because they think they have to do all this other stuff, which is completely meaningless. And they create all their own obstacles because they're terrified of being themselves, actually stepping into their own power and even realizing that they have the power to control and change their own lives. I mean, we could change the world. All this stuff that's going on, we could change it in a day if people would just remember who and what they are. It's just something I've been saying for like 20 years. It gets kind of frustrating, but
I know. I was going to ask you about that because, you know, I mean, that's, if we step into like a more spiritual aspect of it, like we're dealing with all these things that are being pushed out on humanity, which is the lockdowns, which is the lies. I know you reached a place a long time ago, and I certainly did, that everything from history to, it's all a lie. It's all based on deception. So why are we going to grieve the passing away of the Great Deception? And yet I feel inside of me, like, as my conscious awareness, it is a state of awareness, it's consciousness. The more I can be in that, and like you said, the mirror comes back to me. I've had little miracles, but as my field clears, as I'm out of judgment, the way people are around me, the things that happen to me, they're like little miracles, because people sense you when you're you're providing almost a sacred space, because you're not in judgment. You're not in like, you should do this and you should do that. And yet the shadow work, the persona that people generate, most of their energy, this is very Carlos Castaneda in a way, most of their energy goes to keeping a persona, a fictitious person alive, right? And they don't understand that it's a deconstructive process. The process to true spiritual awareness is deconstructing that ego, deconstructing that persona, which is difficult. No, I've always say that I'm sure you've felt many obstacles in your past, many things you had to overcome. We've all experienced probably betrayals, and I mean, what you go through with all the shilling online and the people saying things about you, you have to get to the place where none of that matters.
Yeah, you got to put on your spiritual armor. I mean, you've got to have pretty thick skin to do this work, because as soon as you start making a difference, you're going to get trolled and attacked and defamed, and you're going to pick up on every little thing you say, one word out of place, and they'll throw that back at you for years on end. So that's the way it is. But we do this work because it needs to be done. There's a way through this, and there will be a essence of human purity, soul purity that comes through this on the other side. However many people don't make it through, there will be an essence of purity that comes through the other side, and it's important to keep that going.
You said that
the problem most people have with dealing with all of this is their belief in all their stuff, their belief that they are their possessions, the shadow work they've never done, and as much as they've never taken responsibility for themselves. That's why people are terrified of the system breaking down, because they all live off the food trucks. They're all truckatarians. They don't know life that isn't government approved and isn't like you're living in your suburb and you've got your television and you get up at 8 o'clock and you go to work 9 to 5, you get your paycheck, you buy these things, you go to the designated at the designated times to do so, and all of this sort of stuff. It's like the Lego movie. It's like we're literally living in the Lego movie, and people don't know how to deal with it. They don't know what to do should they have to suddenly take responsibility for themselves, and someone's not going to tell them what to do. Even if it all crashes and the food supply breaks down, they're going to sit there twiddling their thumb saying, well, someone bring me some food. Who's going to fill the supermarket shelves for me? So they're not prepared to do things for themselves, and just realize they've been living in a matrix. This whole world over the last 100 years has been designed to remove them of all of their life skills, so then they can just lock them out of everything. Most people can't find their way around their own towns. They don't know how to dig a garden. They don't know how to hunt. They don't know how to do anything anymore. So really, when you look at this, I mean, we've been set up for this, which is why it has to run its natural course, and why it's time for people to do that shadow work. Because even if we were to pull down all the criminals now and all the control grid and get everybody out of power, it's got to run its natural course now. So many people have had the jab, supply chains are already breaking down. So people need to really rediscover their humanity right now. That's what they need to do. Like I said, do that shadow work. Find out what it is that's keeping you locked into this system, what it is that you don't like about yourself, what it is that makes you frail as you perceive yourself to be, that you can't go and face the world and you can't stand in your personal power. What is it? What's making you like this? People have got to look at this now and realize that all they really need is a shelter and a place to get food, and there's mangoes falling off the trees, and there's fish in the ocean, and there's vegetables growing. And so what's the problem? Really, there is no problem. There's nothing really to fear about the impending collapse of this slavery system unless you are not in touch with yourself. And it isn't crashing yet. It isn't down yet. So you've still got plenty of opportunity and plenty of time to get in touch with that essence. And now's the time to do it. And the universe is kind of pushing you. So you have to do this. You've got to do it now. You've got a choice now. You've got to either become human again, or you're going to get sucked into this system. Your choice.
And, often, for anybody listening, you may be in a city, you may be in a place where you feel like you can't do anything, but you can, start growing food, anything you do, like you said, responsibility, to take responsibility. I've been talking about radical responsibility for a long time. Responsibility goes all the way through. It's not just, oh yeah, well, yeah, I personally, yeah, I know how to garden. I know how to do lots of things. I've been given a lot of skills in this lifetime, but you can acquire those skills if you start. And when you start, like you were saying earlier, Max, then comes the next thing. Then spirit's going to give you, or however you want to describe to yourself what spirit or God or higher mind is, will give you the next step along the way. And I see solutions, I mean, when I see a problem and I'm looking at what is probably going to happen in the United States right now, because that's where I'm from, is that there are so many homeless people, not just, I'm not talking about the drug addicts, but people that cannot no longer afford a home or a rent. And this is happening massive scale across all the cities right now. So then I'm thinking, oh, but there's all this farmland that they're telling farmers not to grow, right? So get out of the city, go find a place. There's always a plot of land. And I feel like it's an organic process as it starts to expand. And as you said, the purity of the human soul, which is very important to meditate on. If you can make those moves, you'll start finding others.
You will. You'll find your tribe. And a lot of people will say, like I said, people create their own obstacles. You'll say, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that because I live in the city. Well, if you own a place in the city, you could sell it. And you'll probably find that you own all this stuff that you don't actually need any of it, and you could just sell it all and even get just a few grand and walk over the border into Mexico and set yourself up and do something else. I mean, you don't have to be where you are. We create our own reasons why we can't leave the city. I can't, I've got a wife and kids and I need to provide for them. Well, you're not going to be able to if you're in the city soon. So maybe the best way you can provide for them is to sell all that shit and go to Mexico or go to Belize or go to somewhere else.
Get one step ahead of the curve right now, because
I mean, the problem is that you are dependent upon the system. You think that you need the system to survive. You think you can't do anything without their restaurants and their movie theaters and their ball games and all of this stuff that they give you. You can. There is a whole world out there and you can see it, you can experience it, you can find things that you never even dreamed you could find and live a life you never even dreamed was possible simply by throwing yourself to the wind. And if you're in one of these city areas, I mean, for God's sake, get out of the city, because it's going to get ugly in the city. Once these supply chains fully break down and these food trucks stop running, the city is the worst place for anybody to be. So, and you can get out of it. It doesn't matter what you think is keeping you there. Like I said, this is your own mind making up excuses why you can't go and get yourself to safe ground. You can. Everybody can do it. I mean, there's nothing really left to hold on to in this system. If you think you need to stay there because you want to get your business back up and running, and no, look, they're taking all of this away. They're cancelling the world. They're cancelling the middle class. They're driving everybody into the poverty line, bring it down and put you on this universal basic income, little bits at a time. All these businesses that they say, oh yeah, we're going to reopen. So you spend all your money getting your business COVID compliant, and they change the rules as soon as you open. So you got to do all that, you lose all this money. Well, it's all designed just to milk your last little bit of wealth out of you. So you're going to end up in the food stamp line anyway. So why not get out now while you've got a chance? You get rid of all this useless stuff you don't need, because all you really need is your vessel that you came in. That's all you really need. You can provide for your family and your kids and all this sort of stuff. You don't need this system to do any of that. So now's the opportunity, folks. Time to become human again. This is the choice you've got. And if you are going to be dependent upon that and think that it's ever going to go back to the way it was, well, you're wrong. It's not going to. It can't ever go back to the way it was. Even if we bring things down altogether and reclaim the world and turn it into something great, it's not going back to the way it was, because that wasn't great,
How do you feel? And when I know you, you receive from spirit or you receive from intuition, and it's a question that gets discussed around my coffee table a lot, is because we know there's this dystopian. We know that a lot of people they've already taken the needle craft. We know that, they've already been affected. And I certainly, and you see too, there are people that just no matter what you say, there's like this blank. It's just there. There's nothing in there anymore that I can reach except for just love that being for whatever it's got to do and let it go. But do you have any visions or inklings or anything of this is gone, what's going to happen for us? Do you have any feelings about that?
I think they're going to fail. Ultimately, they're
Oh,
going to
yeah.
fail with this whole thing.
Definitely.
I think we have an opportunity to get back to what we were. I think we have an opportunity to rediscover the nature of free energy again, to be able to put our minds to more creative pursuits. Once we take our minds off survival mode and having to run on the treadmill and collect the paper we need in order to pay to be alive, and we're free to simply express ourselves and create, I think we will get back to what we're supposed to be as human beings. And I think that this cleansing that is happening at the moment, this soul cleansing, has to happen, because the human race in general has reached a point of spiritual bankruptcy. In general, 90% of the humans on this earth are a complete waste of space. As much as I love them, people, they can't take responsibility for themselves. They can't do anything properly, half these people. They don't know how to do anything. And they're dragging human consciousness down, unfortunately. So it gets to a point where everything to be in balance, you've got to go through this cleansing process. And if this cleansing process is supposed to happen, and how do you cleanse the world of all these souls and all of these dysfunctional people in a way that, I mean, you don't want to just go out and murder people. You give them a choice. You give them a choice to, like I said, become human again, or step into the mainframe. And really, you could blame the politicians and all the people that are rolling this out, but it's us. It's us that's done this collectively, that has done this through our complete lack of responsibility as a species. Even if you want to blame the Jesuits or the Jews or whoever you want to blame, you can blame them all you like. You're still using their tech and doing what they tell you to do. So who's really to blame? If a commanding officer gives a soldier an order to kill a child and the soldier kills the child, who's to blame? The guy who gave the order, or the guy who killed the child, who should have turned around and shot the commanding officer who gave him the order? So you've got to look at it, the situation the world's in. I mean, we're really in a situation like with information overload. If you don't know what's going on now, it's your own choice. If you're still asleep and you're still in the matrix and you haven't taken responsibility for yourself at this stage of life and this stage of the game, then that has been your own choice. As much as I love you and as unfortunate as it is, now a lot of people, myself included, have done the best we could to wake people up, to help them rediscover their power and do our best to prevent this train from ever reaching the station. But now it's here. So what do? There's got to be a point where you've got to be able to just step away and say, well, now it's pretty much every man for himself. I will happily take anybody under the wing who wakes up of their own accord and needs that support. But I'm not going to waste my time at running around door knocking saying, can you please wake up? Because we're past that point.
Oh, and we are meditating this morning. You said something and I marked it, which was like, they're bringing human consciousness down, right? And yes, human consciousness has reached a very low negative level. So in a way, we're doing a purging of the human psychic shadow. All the things that were ignored, all the ways we sold out. Now we say to everybody, we all participated. We are all in some way responsible for this. We dropped the ball. Now, I'm not saying that to each individual, but the way we got into consuming this or needing to have this or whatever it was that we thought maybe at some point in our life, we were part of it. And it was, I couldn't go to sleep. I knew my whole life, there was something inherently wrong, something inherently hypocritical of what I felt inside and what I saw. I'd hear people's words and then they would act another way. But let's go back to that consciousness, because in some ways where I come in all the time, and it is my talk with the people that come to speak with me, at a certain level, you said human purity, at a certain engagement, let's say with spirit or a higher mind, when it's not the personal, we're building a consciousness. And that massive consciousness, to me, it is the determinant factor in the end. Because like we can take out all the politicians, we can take out the governments, we can march in the streets, all the things that people are doing, and none of it am I negating, because everybody's got to do what they have to do. But how powerful is consciousness? How powerful is a group of consciousness, whether we know each other, we don't know each other? Because ultimately, most of the humans on the planet are going to follow the lead.
Mm.
And so, like you're saying, reestablishing our ancient knowledge, reestablishing our creativity. We're inherently creative beings. It's so much a part of what a human being is that it wants to create, whether it's music or poetry or carpentry or a painting or a garden. That is so important and vital. And if you're not doing that, if you're not engaging that part of yourself, you're really missing out. So my question after all that I said is, I feel it that like one human, okay, is actually a multitude. Like one human that truly wakes up, that can reach into, and like you said, that when you said purity the other day on one of your walk and talks, I went, that's it, because it's a cleansing, it's pure. You know, how do you become a pure human being again? You know, I mean, that all these words that we use, they're deep things to really contemplate on. What does that mean to you, the individual?
Yeah, well, like being a pure human being, if you realize there's only really one of us here, it's a single consciousness experiencing itself subjectively, and look at the baggage that it's attracted along the way. How do you purify that? How do you cleanse that soul spirit? How do you get humankind back to that point of divinity? We create a situation like this, and you give it a choice, and you give the people a choice. And perhaps this is how the divine purifies its spirit. Perhaps this is how it gets rid of the baggage, and perhaps this is how God became God. Perhaps this is how it all has to go down. And if there's only really one of us here, and this is like a holographic virtual reality that we're all, in, well, then no harm can really be done through this whole process anyway. So what is there to stress about? It seems real, it seems physical, but I've had experiences in my life that would suggest to me that there's a lot more going on than what people would imagine with this reality. And I think this is just how it has to be done. This is how the cleansing has to happen. And it's okay. It's okay for this to happen. I mean, if as much as I love people, many of them I would suggest came here for this particular purpose. I mean, sometimes when someone comes here and we see a war like in Yemen or whatever, we see this terrible suffering. What if those children and those people came here so that you could witness that suffering because of the awakening that you need?
Right.
And those souls came to do that, to give you that experience. So it's what you do with it. I mean, you can look at that suffering and get frustrated and worry and tear your hair out about it, but you can't go there and fix it. There's nothing you can do to fix it. What are you doing with yourself? How is it affecting your own soul? Where is the growth for yourself in observing this and realizing the profoundness of these souls coming back here for you to witness this? What does this really mean for you? How can you prevent that happening in the future? By taking responsibility for yourself, by realizing all of these things that happen in the world, all these atrocities, all these wars, all this stuff, they're all funded by our own governments because we've given our power away to these people.
Yeah.
So that's the way you stop it. Like I put out a video years ago called Save Gaza, Save the World, where I pointed out that even with what's going on in Gaza Strip and what's going on in Israel, the fact that we focus on Israel all the time is what perpetuates the problem, because the problem is actually being created by our own governments due to our inability to take responsibility for ourselves, our willingness to pay protection money to these people, pay our taxes and do everything the government says and say, it's okay to go and bomb those other countries, just leave me alone. That's where it all comes from. And if we don't take responsibility for our own lives and clean up our own backyard, we'll never fix what's going on in Gaza and in Palestine. And if we don't do that, and we don't realize that this is a moral issue, then the way of Palestine will be the way of the world. That's what I've said for years. And you look at the world now, checkpoints, lockdowns, everything, the world's turned into Palestine because we allowed that to happen. And all we did was point the finger and scream at Israel. We didn't look in our own backyard at our own politicians that are doing all the same stuff to us and who are the ones who are funding all of that. And we never called them out for it. That's where the problem
Yeah,
lies.
you
You
know,
know, we never cleaned up our own backyard and took responsibility for ourselves. We just point the finger at them and say it's Israel's fault. No, it's not. It's your fault. It's our fault. It's my fault. It's our fault for not dealing with the parasites that run our countries. That's where the situation comes from. And you can blame the parasites all you want, but what are you doing for going along with it? You know?
yeah, well, I mean, the big question right now going across, the United States is like taxation. Well, taxes have always been extortion, and so that's a really, really good succinct point. Most people will continue to pay taxes and all that money, and they don't even need your money. They just print whatever they want, but you comply. By paying your taxes, you're complying with the war machine that is making all these arms and sending them to Ukraine and sending them to Yemen and sending them into Syria. So is that morally right? Can you make one stand? And I just hear it and I'm like,
It's
how?
protection money.
It is, it's a mafia. We're being
It's
ruled by
protection money. You're paying your taxes saying, don't come and hassle me. I'll give you the money. You go and bomb them. It's
You're
protection money. It's crazy. And yeah, I mean, we've got a moral responsibility for the state of the world. As much as you want to blame your governments and blame anybody you want, to blame the people that programmed us all, blame the Freemasons, the Jesuits, the Jews, all of them, doesn't matter. Blame the aliens, doesn't matter. It's us who's done it. It's us who's done it to ourselves through our compliance. And most of the people who sit there and point the finger at whoever do so because they don't want to take responsibility for their own lives. They just want to participate in their 2 minutes hate every day, like we had in 1984. And they think everything's going to be fine if they go and do their 2 minutes hate. That releases that for them, and they can blame these other people and never take responsibility for themselves. So many people who complain about the system, but they use smartphones and they use the whole smart grid. They scan QR codes. They do all this stuff every day while screaming out about how totalitarian and dystopian things are getting, and they can't see the problem. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, I hear you, Max, and that's why your voice is so important to be heard, because you're speaking truth. I mean, it is true what you say.
That's why I piss so many people off, darling.
Oh, really?
Because when you speak the real truth,
Right, they don't.
you piss everybody off, everybody on all sides of the spectrum, both sides of the fence,
Right.
because most people have an agenda and they don't want to think that their agenda might be an agenda, but it is.
I mean, and that is an inner job. You have to look at yourself. You just have to, like, where am I compromising in my life? I know, right? Okay. I know truth. I know these things. I'm human. Like you said, I came into this vessel. This is a divinely created vessel gifted to me to be experiencing what I'm experiencing right now. So I tend to live my life with joy. And if joy is lacking in my life, I have to do some serious deep inner work. But everything we do, and that's a very difficult thing for people to get out of the loop back and forth arguing mind, is to say, I'm compromised. Where am I compromising myself? And people compromise themselves with their words, with their thoughts, they know they shouldn't do something and they do it. And,
Well,
and
we do a lot of that, don't we?
well, and what I've seen, or how I observe it, or how I would phrase it, is that every time you do that, you give away a piece of your soul.
Yes.
And so
that's exactly what you do.
Yeah.
Which is why I've never compromised with it. I haven't put a mask on. I haven't scanned a QR code through this whole pandemic. I had to go and I overstayed my visa. I've actually fixed it up now and sorted it out, but I overstayed my visa. I had to go into the immigration office. It's been declared here in Mexico that the pandemic's over and all this sort of stuff, I went into the immigration office the other day and they wouldn't let me in without a mask on. And I'm showing them the decree from the government. I'm showing them this and I'm showing them that. And they still wouldn't let me in. And they're saying, you've got to leave. And I'm going, no. Superior. They ended up four guys physically threw me out of the immigration office because I wouldn't put a mask on and I wouldn't leave. And I'm saying to them, you're breaking the law. You're breaking the law. This is decreed that it's no longer a pandemic. You read what it says on the box of the mask and it tells you it doesn't do any good, doesn't protect you from anything. So you're demanding that I perform an act of self-harm. You're breaking the law by not letting me in the office, and you're a disgrace to the uniform that you're wearing. So what is the reason for this? I mean, the only thing that I can think is that you're either corrupt or you're a complete and utter idiot. and you're a disgrace to the uniform that you're wearing. So please call your superior, because I'm not leaving. I want to know why such a fool is standing in the office inflicting himself on someone else. I ended up getting thrown out of the office. That's the way I treat these people. I just cannot deal with it, and I will not deal with it, and I will not back down. So I ended up having to do it all online and do it by phone and rah, 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 but I got it all done. But they wouldn't let me in the office, and you cannot compromise to these people. Point them out. You're either corrupt or you're an idiot, and you're a disgrace to the uniform. And if this is what the police are, then how can anybody have any respect for the police anymore? I mean, this is pure logic. I mean, I'm not breaking the law. You are.
Wow, Matt, see, that's courageous. I'm sorry. I mean, that is courageous, because you're in a foreign country, and
Well, it's interesting. I'm there with an expired visa, arguing with 4 police officers in the immigration office. They could have just thrown me out of the country, but
right, exactly. But that's the force of like standing in your truth.
Right? Well, yeah, they won't. I mean, they can't legally do it because they're breaking the law. The cops are breaking the law in what they're doing. So,
yeah.
But that's the stance you've got to have. You cannot compromise. You cannot compromise in the face of this. You cannot, even people getting their fake vaccine QR codes and whatever. You just say no. I will not scan it, and I won't leave.
I said right away, I am not playing their game. I am not playing their game. Therefore, no, I won't go around and get a fake card or a fake this or a fake that, and yet again, I get it. I know why people do this, but at the same time, thank you for being who you are, Max.
The thing is, if people didn't do it, the whole thing would go away.
Of course
it would go away.
Of course.
No one wants to put themselves out there and be the one that puts their head on the chopping block, which is understandable,
Yeah.
But it's gotten crazy. The whole world's gotten crazy, and it's going to continue until people start making these stands and realizing these guys in uniform and stuff, they're just guys in uniform. You don't have to actually do it. They say it's a scam. The whole thing is a scam. All the governments are in abusive office anyway. So, why do people believe they have rulers? Why do people believe they have to step outside their moral compass every day? If you do the right thing and stay within your moral compass and operate your life in that way, we could change the world in a single day. And it's that simple. We don't need any wars or any battles or any of that sort of stuff. People just simply need to rediscover themselves and go, oh my God, I have value. And you have value, and everybody has value. I am actually worth something. My life actually has value. This experience has value. That's all you need. Just that epiphany. You go, oh shit, we don't have to do this. We're going to go over here and do this now. You guys in the government, you can fix up the roads and collect the garbage and all the stuff that we employ you to do, but just stay out of our way. So yeah.
Yeah, well, we're in for the ride, and I'm happy I'm here. I'm not in any position to not be. I mean, life prepared me, life prepared you for this moment right now. And, those that hear, I love what you say and the force of your truth, Max, because that's what it takes. And it's not going to come out of everybody in the same way, and if you're not ready for those types of confrontations, there's a whole nother realm too, which is when you're at a certain vibration, you become invisible to them. You literally become invisible to them. And, so I've been practicing that in my life for a while, because what am I radiating when I'm walking? Right.
We're getting rid of fear, darling. No fear, no fear of any of it. That's what they pick up on. It's like the dog sniffing the fear,
Yeah.
When you're just in yourself and that it's this purity of spirit, and you can see the goalposts at the other end, you just walk to them and everything just bounces off you.
Exactly. Well, man, it's super pleasure. I'm so glad we had this conversation, and I do hope to meet you someday. I mean, we're not
probably will. We're both in Mexico. You never know. It could happen. Yeah. I mean, I might end up near Puerto Vallarta somewhere, or I might end up, I mean, who knows? I've been offered places in Tepoztlan as well. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to end up being. I've been in Acapulco now for like 6 months. So I'm getting a little bit tired of it here.
Yeah.
I only really came here because I've got a friend here who's actually never here. He doesn't actually even live in Acapulco. He's here. I've seen him. I came here because Jeff lives here, and I've seen Jeff. I've seen Jeff like on last time I saw him was New Year's Eve. I've seen him for like 5 minutes since New Year's Eve.
Oh, you guys did talk together on.
Yeah, well, he didn't even live in Acapulco. So I mean, I'm just thinking, well, why am I even here? You know, I'm just
Yeah.
kind of hanging around Bonfil, and I mean, it's nice, but
Well, you're
I'm
waiting
sure.
to know which way you're going to walk, Max. That's all you're
Yeah,
doing.
just figuring out where I want to be. I mean, I'm going to go and check out a bit more in Oaxaca and maybe Chiapas. In Chiapas, it's the Zapatitas down there, the Zapalita or
Zapatistas.
Zapatitas, yeah, and they've got their own country pretty well. They've
No, there's
thrown all the government out.
Mexico's extremely interesting in that way. There are actually still people that are outside the Mexican jurisdiction.
Oh yeah, I've been blown out at what's going on down in Chiapas, and I'm thinking, well, that's anarchy in action. Maybe I should go and check that out. You know, so there's no real rules down there. You know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, San Miguel's very civilized. I just happened to have moved here young, and I went away for a while, and I'm back. And I was given really literally this beautiful little house and some property, and I'm here until I'm not here. That's what
Yeah.
I mean, it's really funny. Oh, you have your dream house, you have this, and I'm like, no, I'm done it before. And if I get the call to move away and walk away, I will, so therefore that might happen. I don't know yet, but until I'm directed elsewhere, I'm here.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, who knows what's going to happen? No stake in the outcome, Don.
Yeah.
I'll just go with the flow.
Okay, well, let's stay in touch, Max. And if I can facilitate any movement for you, I've already offered to, drive you to the next place, or you stop by here, get to know this town. So it's an interesting place. So anyways, much love.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Christine. We'll stay in touch.
In Lakesh, and you say this and you say it and you say it, we are all one. So when we can get to that place where we truly honor the other in front of us as ourselves, it changes the world, as you say, in a day.
It does in Lakesh, though.
Okay, we'll talk soon. Bye, darling.